It's an early summer evening at an airfield in Georgia. The tension is as palpable as the humidity. A new plane is scheduled to make its first flight tomorrow, and things have to go well. The F-22 Raptor is a fighter for the next century. This conglomeration of titanium, aluminum, and thermoplastics incorporates bold and forward-thinking designs. It possesses speed, stealth, and flight control systems designed to give its pilot overwhelming superiority against current and future enemy weapon systems. It's the fighter today's children may fly tomorrow. With it, they will be masters of future air war, capable of overwhelming an enemy into submission.
Drone's turning.
More than 10 years of work and a complicated web of contractors and subcontractors in 46 states have gone into producing this next-generation fighter. But already the Raptor has a troubled past. First, the Air Force made demands for fighter capabilities that no one was sure could be met. Then funding cuts caused restructuring and repeated delays in development. A prototype crashed. A subsequent version had so many problems, its first test flight was delayed for months. The plane has faced, and still faces, criticisms from advocates of other planes and from Congress, which has been fretting over the F-22's costs. The last thing the plane's supporters need now is a bungled test flight that adds to the criticism and further clouds the future. The people who know this plane intimately believe this is what America needs for the future. They are as ardent in the support for the F-22 as the critics are in opposing it.
I coined the phrase once upon a time, so there are going to be two kinds of airplanes. There's F-22s and there's targets.
But there are tests to be passed, and tomorrow will be one of them. Inside Building B1 at Lockheed Martin Aeronautical Systems in Marietta, Georgia, a deceptive peacefulness hangs over the assembly line. The work here is done. After months of preparation, an aircraft assembled here will take flight for the first time. A major milestone for even the simplest airframe. Sitting on a ramp some 2 miles away, the F-22 is not scheduled to take off for at least 6 hours, but already crew members are hard at work. They double-check and triple-check every last inch of the aircraft. Absolutely no one wants their assembly, their system, their one small piece in this $187 million puzzle to go awry. In fact, components on Ship 4002, as the aircraft is known here, have been meticulously tested and retested ever since the plane rolled out of the assembly hangar in February, some 4 months ago. Now, the day has come for this aircraft's maiden flight. The F-22 cannot stumble. The Raptor must accomplish what is called a flight with no squawks. That is a test flight that goes off without a hitch. At 5 a.m., the pace of preparations start to pick up. No detail, however small, can be overlooked. Not even the removal of a potentially damaging pebble. A cleaning truck patrols the ramp area, vacuuming up such debris. Lockheed Martin security officer Patty Howarth holds a quick briefing to remind her staff of their priorities.
Everybody forgot everything they learned on how to drive on the flight line, and every single person who had a flight line pass was out here driving on Friday. Everyone.
Howarth will spend the rest of the morning making sure her security team keeps the taxiway clear. Then she will join one of the rescue teams standing by to assist with security in case something goes wrong. Patty also worked on the security detail when Ship 1 flew for the first time.
It was probably one of the greatest days of my life. I've never really been involved in aircraft, and I thought, oh, it'll just be another day. But it was probably 110 the first day it lifted off, and I had goosebumps going up my spine.
As the sun rises, responsibilities are handed off from the night crew to the crew that will launch the plane. Crew Chief Terry Beyer oversees it all, supervising every crew member working on the F-22 today. He's been up since 2 a.m.
A very vested personal interest. Very little sleep last night. Toss and turn. It's been 8 years to get this far, so we're looking forward to a fun day.
Among Beyer's responsibilities this morning is ensuring all instrumentation and systems are functioning so the team can get data on the plane's performance. The data will flow back to a control room here at Marietta.
It's very important to the program, and we've demonstrated not only to the company people, but to the general America and Congress that this airplane can be built here in Marietta, and we have competent people. We've decreased our build time here by over 3 months, and the number of write-ups that we have left open to do is down to a handful of write-ups versus the first airplane. We had significant things that we had to fix when we come back, as far as things that we couldn't complete to go fly.
Beyer believes that won't be the case this time, but he won't know for sure until this flight is over. The man with the best vantage point to compare Ship 1 and Ship 2 is test pilot Paul Metz. Metz, who flew Raptor 1 on its first flight, is a former U.S. Air Force fighter pilot with more than 7,000 hours flight time and more than 33 years experience. He's been the chief test pilot for the F-22 program since 1992.
How dangerous is my job? They don't sell insurance too readily to us for this job, but quite frankly, the job has become much safer and much more controlled. If you look back to the early days of flight test, there were a great number of losses of life in aircraft. We're actually able to use simulators today to predict very, very well what we're going to see.
After several flights in the first F-22, Metz thinks the aircraft will endear itself to future pilots in a number of ways.
From the simple things like amazingly soft landings and the ability to feel really good about yourself when you come back from a flight in terms of your ability to fly it, to extreme maneuverability, to cockpit displays and information that are beyond the realm of the current fighter pilot to envision, and the ability to sneak around in space without people seeing you. All of these things together make for a tremendous package, and the fighter pilots of the future are going to point to the F-22 as their favorite. I'm sure of that.
On the ramp, the ground crew continues working. Beyer's already pacing. Don Stevens is the senior avionics technician for the F-22 program. He's responsible for the computers and other electronics on the aircraft to make sure they are functioning and ready when the pilot gets into the cockpit. Backing him up are a team of experts for every computer on the plane.
We actually have IPT engineers that are ready for their systems as they develop problems and answer any questions. If I have a question, that I know who to go to. We have experts on every component on the aircraft.
The F-22's pioneering electronics are perhaps the crew's biggest source of worry. They've undergone extensive testing, and Stevens believes most of the problems have been ironed out. But until this plane executes a flawless flight, Stevens won't be able to relax.
All of us are putting quite a bit of effort into it to see that it makes its goals, and especially this flight this morning. We're very proud of this aircraft, and we know it's going to take us through this millennium and beyond.
The pride comes from long hours. Flight test engineer Hal Wyeth has been on the ramp since 3:30 a.m.
Well, I broke a little sweat, but we're doing real good.
His team has actually been running final checks since last night. But for Wyeth and his crew, the payoff will come the same way it did with Ship 1, with successful flight. Wyeth recalls how he felt watching the flight of the first F-22.
When he actually rotated and broke ground, it was a great feeling after all the effort that's been put in by so many people. You get little lump in your heart, you know, that kind of thing.
Today, however, the emotions may run deepest for this man. Vincent DeVino is the team leader for airworthiness and delivery crew. He's been shepherding the F-22 from the beginning, sweating the details for 10 years.
I couldn't begin to count them. You know, you're looking at everything here from the airplane readiness, fueling, security of the ramp, making sure you have the right number of people and the right skills aboard. There's quite a few things that go into saying the airplane is ready for flight.
But this will be the last time DeVino has to officially worry about a flight. After 4 decades in the business, he's retiring. And a failed or delayed test flight is not how he wants to end his career.
Well, there's a lot of emotion that goes along with it.
Like?
Like, you know, there's a lot of time and 42 years of experience in this business about to come to a close here.
As it sits on the ramp this morning, the Raptor is just a couple of miles from where it was assembled. But Ship 2 is years removed from its birth, and in terms of technology, light years beyond its ancestors. The impetus for the F-22 began in 1981, when the Air Force announced that it needed a new air superiority fighter. The existing fighter, the F-15, would not survive into the next century. Designed in the 1960s and updated in the 80s, the F-15 would turn in an excellent performance in 1991 during the Gulf War. But production of the plane would cease. In 20 years, it would be outdated. One problem was the natural life cycle of a fighter. Airframes weaken from stress of maneuvers. Moisture infiltration causes corrosion. Part supplies decline, all gradually lowering mission capabilities. And while the F-15 claimed dominance in the skies for years, other countries have not been satisfied to leave that title unchallenged. In recent years, other countries have acquired aircraft and defense systems that can take on the F-15. Fighters such as the French Rafale, the Eurofighter Typhoon, and new generations of the Russian Sukhoi and MiG have steadily reached parity with, and in some cases, surpassed the F-15. Additionally, Russian-made SA-10 and SA-12 air defense missiles can shoot down an F-15. Today, they are for sale to any country with enough money to buy them. So the Air Force began looking for a new fighter that would once again allow the U.S. to leapfrog the lethal competition.
The F-22 is going to help us own the skies, and owning the skies is what will allow us to dominate future battlefields in a way that will enable every other part of our military force, whether it be forces on the ground, at sea, or in the air. Owning the sky makes everything else work.
The new fighter would need the classic ingredients of air superiority: speed and agility, comprehensive situational awareness, the ability to shoot before being seen, and the ability to elude ground threats. But the Air Force decided it wanted to look far into the future, to a fighter that would be superior starting in 2004 and dominate for at least 25 years beyond that. That meant a huge leap into the next millennium for the aircraft designers. They would have to predict future enemy capabilities and concoct a fighter that could respond with overwhelming superiority. But asking manufacturers look that far ahead was like asking designers of the P-51 to foresee the impact of jet propulsion and predict the development of the F-4 Phantom 25 years later. Design teams looked for the 1980s equivalent of the development of jet propulsion. They found it in the computer. By 1986, a profound shift away from massive mainframe computers had begun with the miniaturization of electronics. That opened new possibilities for design of the fighter for the next millennium. Under development at the same time was stealth technology. Stealth modifies a plane's physical characteristics primarily its external surfaces and heat signatures to reduce its radar profile. The Air Force had already begun huge leaps in stealth with its F-117 fighter and B-2 bomber. Strategists have called for such an aircraft as the need developed for small expeditional forces to respond to regional conflicts around the globe. The stealth aircraft offered a perfect fit for such operations in that it could carry out a mission quickly, with precision, without detection, and without the need for support aircraft.
Fox. 30 seconds.
Hence, stealth became a requirement for the new fighter. The Air Force also demanded that it fly at supersonic speeds without afterburner and be highly maneuverable. Designers, mindful of the requirement for domination in the next century, also proposed a fighter that used easily upgradable computers. The computers would provide the pilot seamless situational information to give him a tactical edge.
Get on top of him, and it's coming back downhill.
Computers would also coordinate with the other stealth technology to deny the enemy information about the plane's whereabouts. The idea was to have a plane that would give its pilot first look,
40 seconds.
first shot, first kill capabilities, then zoom away undetected until the initial targets exploded. A third consideration arose from Congress. Federal budget constraints likely would limit the number of planes built, so the new fighters would have to do more with fewer numbers. They would have to be more destructive and deadly, and allow the U.S. to win quickly and decisively with minimal casualties to Americans.
This airplane is the future of our country. It will allow us to own the skies over any future battlefield, and owning the skies over those battlefields is going to keep Americans alive. And that's what the mothers and fathers of America are going to want.
But this futuristic vision required a lot of work. The avionics goals alone seemed huge, and in 1986, close to impossible. Computers that could handle all the plane's requirements didn't exist. Design teams fretted over whether they could pull off this new airplane. Nevertheless, they forged ahead. In 1986, the Air Force selected two teams of defense contractors, Lockheed Boeing General Dynamics and Northrop McDonnell Douglas, to build prototype airplanes known as the YF-22 and the YF-23. Engine makers Pratt & Whitney and General Electric were selected to build prototype engines. In all, the Air Force would have 4 versions of this new plane to consider. The prototypes materialized and began test flights in 1990. Northrop McDonnell Douglas's YF-23 was a graceful aircraft with a forward fuselage resembling a gooseneck stretched out in flight. Its wings created a clipped diamond pattern with all edges swept forward or back 40 degrees. When viewed from above, its broadly angled twin tails paralleled the wing's leading edges. The YF-22 sported a slightly more conventional look, particularly in its shapely jutting twin tails and the more triangular shape of its wings. Designers of both planes incorporated several key developments in stealth, high-speed cruising, and avionics. To increase the fighter's stealth, designers reshaped internal and external parts of the aircraft. They changed how they treated its external surfaces through coating and irregular shapes. Designers also manipulated the plane's heat emissions to mask the fighters from infrared or heat-seeking detectors. The engine makers helped by reducing the need for afterburner to go supersonic. Also modified were the fighter's noises and colors to make it harder to detect by sonar and by the human eye. Ultimately, the fighter's radar cross-section, the element most crucial to foiling the enemy, was reduced until it resembled the radar signature of birds and bees. Speed was another way designers boosted the fighter's air superiority. Conventional fighters get their supersonic speeds through afterburner, but this consumes excessive amounts of fuel and can be used only for a short period of time. The F-22 Pratt & Whitney engines can develop 35,000 pounds of thrust and push the Raptor to well above Mach 1 without using afterburner. That means the fighter can fly at supersonic speeds for longer periods of time, giving it a greater range of operation and enemies less time to react. Designers call this capability Super Cruise. It significantly exceeds the capabilities of engines powering the Air Force current F-15 and F-16 fighters. Finally, the designers incorporated the latest developments in computers to create avionics that give the pilot superior situational awareness. Everything a fighter pilot needs to know, from the location of his wingman and his target to enemy aircraft and radar sectors, is combined into a series of easily understood displays. An enemy aircraft is a red triangle. An unidentified aircraft is a yellow square. A green square is a friendly aircraft. Wingmen are in blue. All a pilot has to do is glance down to his situational display and instantly grasp the battlefield around him.
In fact, we bring in people who have no flight experience whatsoever, put them in the concept demonstrator, let them use displays that are very close, very similar to what's actually in the airplane. And to a person, they can operate the systems, lock onto targets, and destroy enemy aircraft.
Finally, the Air Force demanded that this new fighter demonstrate superior agility. On the YF-23, agility was attained through traditional means, aerodynamics and flight control surfaces. But the YF-22 added thrust vectoring, using nozzles on the back of the engine to direct thrust up or down. With thrust vectoring, the YF-22 achieved a record high angle of attack, 60 degrees, an angle that would stall most other aircraft.
I now announce.
In April 1991, U.S. Air Force Secretary Dr. Donald Rice announced that the YF-22 with its Pratt & Whitney F-119 engines would be the design for its future advanced tactical fighter. Citing better capabilities and lower costs, the Air Force awarded the winning team a $9.5 billion contract. While design work began on the newly dubbed F-22, the Air Force continued test flights on the YF version. On April 22, 1992, while returning to Edwards Air Force Base in California, the YF-22 began oscillating severely 40 feet above the runway. The pilot was unable to regain control. The YF-22 crashed and burned.
The Air Force's prototype YF-22 aircraft crashed April 25th at Edwards Air Force Base as the pilot was completing a practice approach over the runway.
The investigation into the crash of the YF-22 tied it to the thrust vectors. They had been left on during landing and contributed to the oscillation as the pilot moved the control stick. The crash was labeled pilot error. The pilot himself wrote out the crash and walked away from the airplane. F-22 Chief Test Pilot Paul Metz joined the F-22 program shortly afterwards.
The problem was one of having a prototype flight control system that was not designed to be used in that flight environment. It had some sensitivities, some known sensitivities. And unfortunately, it caught that particular pilot on that particular day and caused the resulting accident.
The thrust vectors were integrated into the flight controls, eliminating the need to turn them on and off. Now they automatically interpret the pilot's movements on the aircraft stick. The harder a pilot pulls on the stick, the more thrust vectoring the flight control system will provide.
All of those commands from the pilot go through a computer, and the computer then manipulates or modulates those control surfaces depending on the flight conditions. I I like to think of the vector as simply being like a bigger aerodynamic tail on the airplane. They make the airplane move in pitch, and the pilot has no idea that part of that pitch is from the engines and part of the pitch is from the horizontal tails. It's all transparent to you.
While the crash was a setback for the F-22 program, the Air Force interest in the fighter never diminished.
My position for about 10 miles. The impact.
Operation Desert Storm in 1991 proved that a fighter with its capabilities was still needed.
8 seconds. Roger.
I think we expect what we saw in Desert Storm, that is a clear, decisive, overwhelming show of force that ended the war very quickly with a minimal loss of life of our people. In the future, we should expect that of all of our equipment.
Yeah, 4-0, you got friendlies in front of you with a wife. Yeah, I see him.
The Gulf War raised expectations of the American public for decisive conflicts of short duration. But Desert Storm also reminded the F-22 designers of the need to be more flexible and ready to react to new problems, such as Iraq's Scud missile, for example.
Many of our requirements were modified as a result of lessons learned in the Gulf War. Hard to find relocatable launch targets, for example, was one of the phenomena that was a fairly significant problem for the U.S. forces. Some of our systems on the airplane are designed to deal with that.
The F-22 design team also had to react to rapid and ongoing changes in computer systems. In fact, one of the aircraft's newer features is its flexibility for expansion and swapping out components. Capacity is available within the aircraft to add computer processor power, even though the expectation is that the trend towards smaller but more powerful computers will continue. Computer advancements also eased some manufacturing aspects of the new fighter. Computer-aided design provided precise measurements that could be transmitted to manufacturers and suppliers around the country. It also enabled engineers to visualize detailed aspects of the aircraft while it was still in design phase. No hard mock-up of the plane was created. Instead, manufacturing plants in Fort Worth, Seattle, West Palm Beach, Florida, and East Hartford, Connecticut all relied on computer-generated models for such key components. At final assembly in Marietta, these major sections of the aircraft fit remarkably well. In fact, Lockheed Martin claims that some tolerances were accurate to within 1/6,000th of an inch. The development that proved most difficult to cope with was the ongoing downsizing of the U.S. military. The shrinking defense dollar at times hurt the fighter's development.
Time and time again.
Defense Secretary William Cohn warned Congress that it would have to close more bases to pay for all the weapons systems it desired, but Congress shied away from that painful task, fearful of the political repercussions. That left new weapons systems, such as the F-22, vulnerable to the Pentagon budget acts. Against this backdrop of uncertain federal support, Lockheed Martin unveiled with fanfare its first F-22 on April 9, 1997. The company announced that this aircraft would take its first flight by the end of the following month. But that first F-22 stumbled badly out of the gate. One problem followed another, and the program quickly fell 3 months behind. Finally, on September 7, 1997, Metz took the first F-22 into the air. That flight tested the aircraft's handling characteristics and engine performance through different power levels. It retracted the gear for a clean configuration to test handling, and it tested the aircraft in formation with an F-16. The roughly 1-hour flight demonstrated the plane could fly. Lockheed Martin and the Air Force called the problems that delayed the first F-22 minor, although the repairs were sometimes complicated. But the delays gave critics ammunition. A military cost review agency twice warned that the F-22 was at risk of billion-dollar cost overruns. Congress complained of too many technical problems and too few test flights. Senators warned that this $187 million plane might be a dead duck if its price per copy kept climbing. The F-22 supporters responded by reminding Congress the fighter was far from a conventional aircraft. Thus, its costs in development were unpredictable.
In my personal opinion, this program has had an unprecedented focus on cost and cost control. We have been what's termed a cost reimbursable contract, principally because we're busting the frontiers of many new technologies on this program, and you can't very accurately predict where that's going to lead you as you bring these technologies online. If you look at this program in terms of its complexity from any historical measure, we believe we're going to deliver the airplane about 25% under what many outside experts think it should cost. So that's rather revolutionary in its own.
Haunted by criticism, this team at Lockheed Martin in Georgia redoubled its efforts. They have succeeded in getting this second F-22 ready for its test flight a full 9 days ahead of schedule. But being ready is not the full measure of success, and the pressure for a perfect flight only increased. At 9 a.m., everyone who works on the F-22 flight line, from engineers to stockroom clerks, stops what they're doing and heads out to the runway.
We're doing a FOD walk this morning, and FOD is foreign object damage. Any item, a pebble, a rock, any MSP item that might happen to be on the runway could damage the engine. And we are out here this morning to prevent that from happening.
The FOD walks are performed once or twice a week at fighter bases. But with this plane, FOD walks are done any time it is scheduled to have its engines running. The workers fan out and scan the pavement for anything that the vacuum truck may have missed.
Something that small can nick an impeller blade and cause it to be off balance. If it's bad enough, it comes apart just like a hand grenade in flight. So we want to be very careful that we get everything off the ramp that we can see.
At the end of the walk, all the workers' bags are carefully collected. There is no prize for the worker who turns in a bag with the most debris.
A FOD-free airplane, that's the prize, no busted engines.
The FOD walk completed, the ground crew begins its last-minute check. Optimism runs high, but it's short-lived. Suddenly there is a problem. A small hydraulic leak has been discovered. The pre-flight timetable is halted. For how long? No one knows. Two hours have gone by, but relief and optimism return. The hydraulic leak's been fixed. Test pilot Paul Metz arrives. He greets Beyer, the crew chief, and the two do a walk-around inspection of the fighter. The boom on the F-22's nose reflects the test phase of this aircraft. The antennas sprouting from it will send data streaming back to the small white building. This is the nerve center for the test flight. The building is full of engineers who monitor every system on the F-22 while it's in flight. The ground crew conducts another FOD walk. It's now 11 a.m., and an anxious crowd of Lockheed employees and curious reporters have gathered to watch this F-22 make its first leap skyward. His inspection complete, Metz climbs into the cockpit. Beyer assists him in buckling up. Starting an F-22 is almost as easy as starting an antique car. Early designs required the pilot to complete 17 steps, but for all its complexity, this F-22 asked him to do just 3 things. Turn the battery on, push the auxiliary power switch to start, and move both throttles to idle.
The airplane's actually very simple to operate. It only takes a few switches to get it started. And once we get it started, we have to go through a number of checks with the airplane to get it ready for flight.
Beyer signals to Metz to bring up the power. Metz talks to both the tower and the control room, running through more checklists. On the ground, Beyer, the crew chief, listens in and paces some more. Now the plane is ready for its initial move, a roll check. Metz eases the jet a half roll forward and taps the brakes. Beyer now begins signaling Metz to head toward the runway. As he rolls out, Metz is engaged in a constant conversation with the control room, running checks for all his systems. He also talks to the pilot of the F-16 chase plane to coordinate takeoff and rendezvous. Metz taxis forward toward the runway, testing his rudder, closing down his engine nozzles. He stops again for what is called his last chance inspection. Buyer gives him a thumbs up and hands him over to the tower. The aircraft rolls to the head of the runway and prepares for takeoff. It's now 11:30 a.m. The chase plane heads out. The F-16 will be Metz's eyes outside the plane, looking for problems and visually verifying all aspects of the test flight. Now the moment has come. All the months of effort boil down to a single motion of the left hand. Metz eases the throttle forward and adds power to the engines. A few breathless seconds later, Raptor 2 takes flight. Immediately, the newly born plane physically and visibly gives notice of its sheer power. The nose lifts higher as it surges into a gravity-mocking climb. It's an initial performance that Metz will later admit even surprised him. The F-16 must go to afterburner to keep up.
This is a real high point of the airplane. Pratt & Whitney's done a fantastic job with the engines. They operate very, very smoothly with almost no vibration. You can tell no difference between idle and military power.
For all its excitement, the takeoff was not the culmination of the day's effort. It was merely a beginning. There is a flight plan to be followed and tests to be done. According to that flight plan, Metz will fly a triangular route over Georgia. He will head north to Jasper, 40 miles away, then turn west for a 46-mile leg, then turn south and return to Dubbins and Marietta. After the initial climb, the F-22 slows to 200 knots and levels off. The gear stays down for the first test phase. While he cruises, Metz and the engineers run through checks of all the aircraft's systems, making sure all are working. Once everyone is convinced the plane is functioning correctly, it's time to check flight control systems. Time to make the Raptor move a little. The ailerons, the rudders, the thrust vectors. As something moves, data goes streaming back to the white control building.
Here we're seeing some control motions with the rudder. Again, just relatively gentle maneuvers to see if the airplane responds just as predicted in the simulations. And it did.
Now Metz brings the throttle forward again. The added power pushes the aircraft to 225 knots, and quickly the two climb to 20,000 feet. Now comes a critical step. The landing gear is tested. It reacts smoothly, and it's lowered again. Then raised for good. Putting the gear up represents an act of faith that it'll come back down. The first phase of the test flight is complete. It has not only gone smoothly, it's been perfect.
We'll bring the gear up and take a look at the characteristics of the airplane and what we call a clean configuration. Landing gear comes up, and once it does, the airplane is very, very smooth. There's absolutely no buffet, and characteristics are excellent.
Everything done with the gear down is now repeated. Checking how the F-22 handles, how the engines respond.
Again, with the gear up, we'll look at some of those relatively mild handling qualities characteristics, such as bank-to-bank rolls, and some of the control inputs. And again, the airplane is very quick, very cat-like and agile in the response.
40 minutes into flight, another milestone test. Metz and the F-16 show the F-22's ability to fly in formation.
And we use the cameraman as a director in this case to help me make relatively rapid and quick changes in position while flying the wing of the F-16 here.
Finally, nearly an hour later, the tests are over. There's just one thing left to do.
Coming in close to final, the airplane floats very nicely, can be flared, and touches down very softly.
As they land, Metz holds up Raptor's nose to help slow the plane.
Once on the ground, we hold the nose up for aero braking to bleed off some airspeed. I deployed the speed brakes just as the nose came down for touchdown. And that also helps dissipate the airspeed.
With about 5,000 feet of runway remaining, brakes are applied, bringing the F-22 down to a fairly slow speed to finish the rollout.
Handling characteristics in the landing phase are really delight. It'll make any pilot feel proud to bring the airplane back and land it. It's a very easy airplane to land.
As the spectators applaud, Metz brings the F-22 over toward them, pauses, and lets the plane take a bow.
These are the folks that are really responsible for getting me in the air. And there are thousands of people, not only in Marietta, but Seattle, Fort Worth, Pratt & Whitney, and the suppliers around the United States, and in fact around the world, that struggled for a long time to put this airplane together.
Back at the ramp, the ground crew cheers as Metz leaves the cockpit. There are handshakes and photos all around for a successful test flight. It was by the book.
The flight profile was flown exactly as we had planned it out, and absolutely no anomalies on the airplane. It's ready to go again. Don't have a squawk on either the instrumentation or the airframe itself.
Anything unexpected, either good or bad?
Well, you probably saw it on the climb out here. We rotated up to the climb at about 3/4 field and really rocketed on up there. And both myself and the chase pilot both remarked that that was a lot spiffier performance than we saw with number one. And I can't explain it because it's a hotter day, but it really went upstairs today.
With the plane safely back on the ramp, Beyer can finally stop pacing.
Well, I guess a lot of things go through your mind. I mean, you think about fuel, you think about electrical power, but mainly is great feeling jumping off, and made a few bets with the ground crew of how bad the airborne pickup would be. But Colonel Rainey hit it pretty good. He was right with him.
Elation is pervasive among the ground crew.
Fantastic. Got this airplane in the air early, got it back, no squawks on it, perfect.
This successful test flight does much today to chase away the program's demons. The F-22 team has proven it can deliver a test flight early and with flawless results. That should go far in helping others focus on what is really the aircraft's key selling points. Its maneuverability and speed, according to Metz.
The most striking thing that you see when you get in it is the raw power. And that's what's going to be an eye-opener to the operational pilot.
With its flawless test flight behind it, this F-22 will stick to its schedule and fly again in 2 days. After that, it will undergo some minor modifications, then be test flown about a half-dozen more times. If those go well, the aircraft will then be ferried to Edwards Air Force Base in California, where it will join the first F-22 in future test flights. The naysayers in Congress, meanwhile, will be forced to consider that this plane made its test flight 9 days early without a single hitch and demonstrated some exciting fighter capabilities.
I think the reliability we're seeing and our ability to hold to schedule with this complex system are both very strong testimony to the fact that the program's coming together.
Beyer agrees.
Well, I think it proves to Congress and the United States Air Force that Lockheed Martin can build a reliable fighter on time and below budget. The crews come together and they know what they're doing, and we worked through some trying times on the first aircraft, but we learned, and that's the biggest thing it showed. We learned from the difficulties we had, and we've overcome them, and now we're a month ahead of schedule.
Now, Beyer is ready to announce the last step today for the crew. It's not more testing or more analysis or even reviews, although those will surely go on as well.
Well, I think everybody's going out tonight and unwind a little bit, have a good time. So we'll enjoy ourselves.